Willow Creek Springs presents Healthy Living with your host, Joe Grumbine.
Well, hello and welcome back to the Healthy Living Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Grumbine, and today we've got a very special guest. His name's Dr. Bill Andrews, and he's a leading expert on longevity research, a renowned scientist in anti-aging research. This guy's been around. He's been featured in Popular Science, The Today Show, and numerous other publications. He's got a PhD in molecular and population genetics, and in 1981 spent much of his career in medical research. Dr. Andrews is recognized for his work on cancer research, which is very interesting to me, and was second place at the 1997 National Inventor of the Year. Dr. Bill, welcome. How are you doing today?
Oh, pretty good. Lots of excitement going on today. But whatever. Yeah, I'm tongue-tied. What do you know? Okay, so hopefully you'll edit that out. I usually am not tongue-tied like that.
It's all good. Well, we gave you a pretty big intro, so you've got some big shoes to fill today.
Yeah.
So, longevity research, that's a big passion of mine. I consider myself a biohacker, and I've gone through a big transformation. Before I got diagnosed with cancer, and now I've been beating the hell out of that and biohacking my way through that as well. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got involved with longevity, aside from just like the rest of us getting older?
Yeah. Well, first, let me just say that cancer is an aging-related disease. The risk of cancer increases a lot. So I consider that part of my research. But I do have a lot of products on the market right now that have gone through clinical studies for treating cancer.
Nice.
But I really got into this obsession with anti-aging when I was 10 years old. I just know that my teachers from elementary school sent me home with a note on my shirt. And my parents opened up the note and it said, "Your son is remarkably interested in science and medicine. You should nurture this."
Nice.
And I'd already talked my parents into getting me a really big, nice 8-inch reflector telescope so that I could start looking at Saturn and the rings of Saturn, the moons of Jupiter, things like that. And I remember one night I was out on the front lawn and my father came out to me and he said, "Bill, I've been thinking, when you grow up, you should become a doctor and find a cure for aging."
Wow.
And
no kidding.
And then he said, "I don't know why nobody's done that yet." Okay. And it was like, he made me think that's easy. Okay. It's going to be easy to cure aging. Okay. It's a disease.
But you know what? When you're young and you believe something is easy, it can be easy.
You're also very influential when you're young. So,
yes.
So I became obsessed with this. Even I was still in elementary school at the time, but off and on, I would get more and back interested. And my father was constantly on me to, think about it, things like that. So in high school and college, I was starting anti-aging clubs, and I had friends that would get together and just brainstorm about what's causing aging. And we were all pretty smart guys. In fact, one of my friends actually got the Nobel Prize in medicine in 2011. Wow. But even back then, we were talking about all the theories and stuff like that, and what aging is, why we age, how we age, all that kind of stuff.
So tell me a little bit about the points that you guys were starting out. Like, I like to understand the genesis of a process, and like what were you guys looking at that point in your life?
Well, we were mostly looking at what is advertised.
Okay.
So there would be, you'd hear all these rumors because we weren't really experts on it, and they don't teach anti-aging in high school and
no, they don't.
College. But what is there's products like TeloVital or something like that back.
Oh yeah, Geritol or whatever. Yeah.
And it's like we would think about, okay, so how is this working? What's the mechanism of action? Why is it affecting aging? And then we would brainstorm on this, and we'd conclude that it doesn't make sense. Okay, I mean, the term we always use is all the twos and twos have to add up. And if they don't all add up, then there's something wrong with this particular theory.
Right.
And so I remember in college learning that a guy named Leonard Hayflick had discovered that human cells can only divide a limited number of times.
Right.
He would take cells from a newborn baby and divide them in a petri dish, and those cells could divide 50 times.
Right.
He would take cells from a 50-year-old, let them divide in a petri dish. They could only divide 25 times. He'd take cells from a 90 to 100-year-old, and they could divide less than 10 times before they would stop and go into a phase called senescence.
Right.
They called this the Hayflick limit. So what I remember in college, we started, and this is like 10 years after Hayflick had made this discovery, because everybody at first thought Hayflick was nuts. But, my team group, we started concluding that, his data looks pretty good. His publication looks solid. And we started wondering, boy, does this have something to do with aging? And so we started figuring out start having a discussion. How could a human cell, know how many times it has divided and how many more times it can divide? And this was something that plagued us. I remember being in Palm Springs one time playing pool, and I knocked a ball into the pocket, and I reached out with my cue stick and slid a wooden pellet up on the wall from one side to the other to mark that I got a ball. And I thought, I wonder, could there be a mechanism like that inside of a cell? So we brainstormed on that. We decided, no, that's too complicated.
Genetic abacus.
Yeah, that would be too complicated for what we knew, because we were all biochemists studying biochemistry, 401, 501, all these kinds of stuff. We were advanced, all this kind of stuff, and we knew that a cell could not have a mechanism like that. But then all of a sudden, we came up with the idea of ride tickets at an amusement park.
All right.
Okay, so could there be something like that inside of our cells, so that every time a cell divided, it would lose a ticket?
Right.
And the cell wouldn't know how many tickets it's used. It wouldn't
matter. Yeah, when it runs out, it runs out.
It runs out. And so we brainstormed on that for a long time, and really actually never came up with anything, okay, to explain it. But then the big breakthrough was in 1993. In fact, my father's still very interested in anti-aging. The more obsessed I got with it, the more obsessed he got with it. He was a television producer, and he was wanting to make a documentary on scientists curing aging.
Nice.
So I was going to this conference on aging in Lake Tahoe, and I invited him to go with me. And so we went, and I introduced him to all the top leaders in the world in anti-aging. I'd already become well known because of my obsession. And he was talking, we had a dinner, we were talking about making a documentary and stuff like that. And then one of the guys that was there, a guy named Michael Rose, he and I started talking about, let's start a company to focus on aging. But we decided to do it on mice and just like breed longer living mice and stuff like that.
All right.
And find out what changed in their DNA when they live longer. But then the very next morning after that, we started a company. We stayed up all night. I was going to be the president of the company and things like that. We stayed up. The next morning, I heard a guy named Calvin Harley at Geron Corporation talk about the fact that telomeres get shorter every time a cell divides.
There you go.
And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, oh my God, here's the right. It's a telomere. So I actually now show pictures of chromosomes.
Nice.
The tip of the chromosome is ride tickets. Okay, so every time a cell divides, it doesn't lose a ticket. It turns out when a single cell wants to replicate to become two daughter cells, everything inside that parent cell needs to be duplicated. Mm-hmm. So that the daughter cells are identical to that parent cell.
Right.
And that includes the DNA, where all your genes are. So those have to be duplicated. So it goes through DNA replication. But it turns out that a human cell lacks the ability to be able to replicate all the way to the end. So the telomere didn't get shorter. The new DNA that gets made was just made shorter because it couldn't go all the way to the end. I use, as an analogy, when I talk at conferences, I'll use bricklaying as an example. So you got a bricklayer on top of a brick wall,
Right.
backing up, laying a brick, backing up, laying another brick. And when he gets to the end of the wall, he falls off before being able to lay that last brick. So the new
Right.
row of brick, so every row of brick is shorter and shorter and shorter.
Sure.
And that's a remarkable similarity to what really is going on.
Yeah.
And so, but that guy, before he could even get off the stage, I was at the bottom of that podium saying, has anybody figured out how to re-lengthen them? I mean, he did mention that telomeres don't shorten in our reproductive cells, because if they did, our children would be born with shorter telomeres than we have. Their children born with shorter telomeres than they have.
Right.
We would have been extinct as a species millions of years ago, or
There's
300,000
an
years ago.
exception in there that can be explored.
Yeah. So he said that they'd been working on it for years with teams all over the world, and nobody had figured it out. And I just said, let me come and work with you. I will figure it out in 3 months.
Nice.
And now I had already had a history of major successes in biotech, accomplishing things when nobody else could get them done. That includes like human growth hormone, tissue plasminogen activator, erythropoietin, beta seron, on and on, a whole bunch of lots of cancer drugs, things like that. So it was pretty short job interview. He got me on board right away. And then 3 months and 17 days later, my team discovered the enzyme human telomerase. I was actually the one that actually verified or said, this is it. But
no kidding.
I couldn't have done it
Wow.
without my team. And I had like 3/4 of all the employees at Geron Corporation reporting to me at the time.
Wow.
So it was a big effort. But we discovered, and then the 17 extra days that it took me, I blamed it on Geron for interfering with too much with trying to redirect my efforts elsewhere. But we discovered the enzyme. We put it into normal skin cells, and we showed that they completely lost the Hayflick limit.
Wow.
And what was more important is that their risk of becoming cancer decreased immensely.
Interesting.
Okay? And because of my cancer background, I had some theories about cancer. There were a lot of people that started thinking at the time that this enzyme telomerase that we discovered was actually causing cancer. And
Really?
I was saying, no, it's actually decreasing cancer. And it turns out that in cases of so after we discovered the enzyme, we did find that a lot of cancer cells are immortal because they suddenly are producing telomerase. And
Oh, really?
yeah, but it's not, the telomerase didn't cause the cancer. The cancer caused the telomerase. Okay?
Interesting.
So what now we know, years and years later, we know that when a cell starts dividing rapidly, like a cancer,
Right.
every time it divides, the telomeres get shorter and shorter and shorter. When the telomeres get critically short, it starts, the mutation rates skyrocket. The short telomeres induce so many mutations that you can see them in the light microscope.
Wow.
Okay? And so these mutations are doing all kinds of things, rearranging genes and stuff like that. And then one of the two of the cancer cells end up putting telomerase under control of some other promoter. So the cancer starts producing telomerase, and then the cancer becomes immortal, and that's when it kills you. If you're over 30 years old and a cancer gets bigger than a pimple,
Hi, this is Joe Grumbine, and I wanted to share an update. The platform that hosts this podcast has made some changes to the subscriber settings, and we have a number of subscriber-only episodes that we offer to the supporters, and for a minimum of $3 a month, we can get you signed up. And if you're already signed up and you're having some kind of trouble locating these episodes in the other platforms, I would say maybe the best answer is to unsubscribe and then resubscribe. I'm sorry for the hassle. I don't have any way to make a change, but I'm very grateful for all the support. Thank you.
Okay, small pimple. That cancer has figured out a way to become immortal. Okay,
Right.
otherwise it would die of old age. Okay, and so because of the skyrocketing mutation rates from the short telomeres, there was almost always a chance that at least some of those cancer cells would mutate to start producing telomerase and therefore become immortal. So the cancer caused telomerase, and the telomerase caused the cancers to become immortal.
All right.
I
That
just
makes
want to
sense.
learn from that. Let's make a non-cancer cell immortal.
Right. Exactly.
And it turns out that when we do that, the risk of becoming cancer decreases immensely, and it's because of one, it's not only just inducing the cells that you're treated, but it's inducing telomerase in your immune cells, which is lengthening telomeres in your immune cells, which is giving your immune systems a much better chance of fighting a cancer if you get cancer. But more importantly, it's preventing your cells from having the critically short telomeres that induce all the mutations.
Makes sense.
So telomerase doesn't cause cancer. Telomerase decreases the risk of cancer. And this has been shown over and over again. Dr. Rhonda Pinnell, who was a doctor at Harvard, very famous doctor at Harvard, who was very, very into cancer. He was convinced that telomerase causes cancer. And I actually provided him, he and I were friends, I actually provided him with the technology, the telomerase and everything like that, so that he could prove that telomerase causes cancer.
Okay.
Because I'm just a scientist.
That's
I'm
good
not
science, though. Try to
not
prove
trying to
the
make
opposite. Yeah.
something true that's not true. So I want to know the answers too.
Absolutely.
So to his disappointment, he found out the mice did not get cancer, and they actually had what he called a remarkable reversal of the aging process.
Wow.
Okay. And he used engineered mice because mice don't normally age by telomere shortening. So he had to create a mouse that does. And there's a really great video of Diane Sawyer interviewing Dr. Rhonda Pinnell, showing the pictures of the mice, and he was like stunned. You know, he was like a remarkable reversal of the aging process. He also ended up later doing more studies and found that telomeres were the kingpin of aging. He published papers showing that even mitochondria health and everything like that was affected by telomere length. You keep the telomeres long, nothing else happens.
Nice.
Okay, none of the other aging markers happen. So, and he was doing it like we've even done these experiments here. Let telomeres shorten, relengthen them, shorten, relengthen, and we find that aging goes up and down, just on telomeres, nothing else. That doesn't mean that nothing else causes aging. Okay,
right.
I want to be clear, but it does tell me that no matter what else we do to try to cure aging, aging will never be cured unless we also solve the telomere shortening problem.
Right.
And maybe we'll find that it does solve all the problems of aging, but I would be surprised if it did, because I think you can get aging just by other things. Even with long telomeres, you can still have aging. So we have to solve these things. And then there's diseases. Like my favorite one I like to refer to is alcoholism.
Okay.
Alcoholism has nothing to do with telomeres. Okay. And so, but it does accelerate telomere shortening, okay, by killing liver cells and things like that.
Right.
So even after we do cure aging with telomeres, we still have other things we have to do. And
we got plenty of ways to get old.
yeah, so I don't know. I'm kind of long-winded.
No. This is very interesting to me. You know, the whole idea of telomeres, I was introduced to, I don't know, probably about 7-8 years ago when I sort of began my journey of getting healthy and all that good stuff. I don't understand it on the level that you do, but I understand the concept of it, and I understand the importance of trying to keep them long. And so you've come up with some ways to do that. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, yeah, we first of all, we had to develop some pretty sophisticated high throughput assays, ways of testing for different ways of lengthening telomeres, because there's a lot of claims of things that lengthen telomeres and
Right.
they actually don't. But I wanted to really figure out something that does, and it's actually a lot tougher than you would ever imagine. So we haven't found uh, like a chemical or a nutraceutical or anything like that actually is potent enough to reverse aging. And despite everything else you hear in the marketing world,
Sure.
nothing has ever been discovered that does. But we have found the most potent things so far. And so let me, before I explain that, telomere shortening and lengthening is like a tug of war.
Mm-hmm.
And in our reproductive cells, it's a tie. Okay, we have people on one side pulling to lengthen, one on the other side pulling to shorten, and it's a tie. So we have they shorten and they lengthen, they shorten and they lengthen. It's a back and forth kind of thing. In all of the other cells of our body, we only have the shorteners, okay, pulling to shorten, and that's just going on. Now we can decrease the number of shorteners, so we can slow down the aging process by living a healthy lifestyle, like antioxidants, don't smoke, don't be obese, things like that, and
Right.
inflammatories. But there's a basal level that, when I was talking about that bricklayer falling off the wall, we can't get below that. Okay, that's called the basal level telomere shortening.
Some sort of gravity always going on.
So we started this assay, this high throughput robotic screening, where we were testing like 4,000 different ingredients a day, and looking for anything that would cause the cells to start producing telomerase. And we started finding some. First they were weak, and then we found stronger. Then we started doing medicinal chemistry to start redesigning things. We started getting smarter and smarter from the results that we got, learning from looking at structures. And so we started coming out better and better. But the problem with these things is that most of the things is that as soon as we did anything to engineer it or redesign it, it became a pharmaceutical. And
Right.
then pharmaceuticals require like 20 years of FDA clinical studies and billions of dollars and things like that. So we just took the approach that, let's find a nutraceutical.
Yeah.
Does that. And so we started emphasizing nutraceuticals, and we found a lot of nutraceuticals, but still so we're putting people, so we got the shorteners pulling to shorten. Maybe I got my hands reversed this time. But now we are putting people on the other side, but we aren't tying the tug of war or even winning the tug of war. We are just slowing down the tug of war.
Right.
Okay, so it's still short, but that's a really good thing. And
yeah,
I can't tell you how often people say, you don't reverse aging? What good is your product? It's like, that's because they believe that everybody else has products that reverse aging. And they don't.
As a point of reference, when you're going through cancer treatment, they talk about, 6 months of life as this big gift. And so if you're shortening your telomeres and you give yourself any amount of extra time, it's definitely a benefit.
Yeah, and it's not just life, it's health too. And
yeah,
I know you weren't saying that, but a lot of people say, well, I don't want to live a long time if I'm not healthy.
Right.
There's not a scientist in the field that I know of that is thinking, oh, I just want to extend people's lifespan.
Right, exactly. It's quality of life for sure.
Yeah. But so we've tested like 20,000 different plant extracts, and throughout the last 10 years, and we've continually found more and more potent ones. We did have some companies license some of them a while back, years ago, and they discontinued them because of profit margins weren't high enough, and
of course
they were too focused on profits and not enough on actual health.
Right.
But then I got approached by Touchstone Essentials, which blew me away because they seem like they don't care a thing about profits. They just want people to be happier and healthier.
Nice.
So, and by the way, I never market. I believe in, when I promote a product, I promote it on its benefits, okay, not on the lack of benefits by other products that compete.
Right.
So but I did find that I really liked Touchstone's attitude, and so I licensed our latest nutraceuticals to them, our plant extracts to them that we had discovered. And so the top 5 plant extracts that we have ever discovered, and we've tested everything else that's out there that marketed to be able to do it, and they don't do anything. But we licensed our top 5, what I call telomerase-inducing plant extracts, licensed them to Touchstone Essentials, and they put them together and created TeloVital.
Nice.
I didn't create it. I just licensed them.
Right.
The thing, I'm the scientist. I'm not going to market the product or anything like that.
Yeah.
Except
You
that
gave them the ingredients to work with.
Yeah, and they wanted to also. I mentioned that you can reduce the number of shorteners by antioxidants, anti-inflammatories, and so they wanted to know some of those too. But they wanted them to be vegan and natural and organic.
Okay.
And so
Everybody wants that these days.
I was able to provide them with a list of things, and actually, I'm going to confess, my business partner, a guy named Christian Chase, who was in New Zealand, he actually came up with a list of things that are organic, natural, and vegan.
All right.
That actually would do that, and so those are included in TeloVital also.
Nice.
So TeloVital is not only decreasing the number of shorteners, it's actually adding lengtheners. Okay, so you're getting the best of both worlds, but it's still not winning the tug of war. Okay, so clear, but slowing it down is good.
But progress is progress, and as we start getting to the other side of our hourglass, any progress is good progress, the way I see it. Especially if the quality of life is included with it all.
What increases your chances of still being around when we come up with something that does reverse aging, because we're still working on this. I mean, our research literally costs us $2 million a month to do.
Wow.
Okay, to run the robots, to have all the assays, to get all the plant extracts and things like that, to pay the salaries. It's $2 million a month to perform this assay, but we're doing it. Okay,
wow.
And we're finding, and I said we tested like 20,000 different plant extracts so far. There's at least 3 million out there.
I was going to say there's a lot more to go.
Yeah, and I'll confess, some of the nutraceuticals, some of the plant extracts, I don't want to call them nutraceuticals because they're not on the market, but some plant extracts are toxic.
Right.
Okay? And so those get thrown away right away.
Sure.
But it turns out some of those ended up being toxic against cancer cells. Okay, so they become useful too in different ways.
Absolutely.
But, we're moving along, and I gotta say, I do something that's called critical meta-analysis of peer-reviewed studies. I'm really good at looking at scientific studies and looking at their experimental design and their data analysis and the logic and statistical theories and things like that of papers, and being able to weed out what's right and what's wrong, because you can find anything you wish to be true in even the scientific peer-reviewed literature.
100%.
But so I did this kind of like due diligence on the other products that Touchstone has, and I was blown away.
Nice.
They have products that I can't find the equivalent of anywhere else, like their glucocontrol, which is converting sugar into fiber. Fiber is good, sugar is bad.
Right.
Sugar tastes good. What else? Their zeolite is, I think, one of the best things I've ever seen for getting rid of like toxins, heavy metals, things like that.
Yeah, that's wild. They use that in kitty litter.
Yeah, well, they not as pure as this stuff is.
Right, I would imagine. I would hope.
What else? The fulvic acid. I've always been a fan of Shilajit.
Yeah.
But Shilajit has side effects and stuff like that.
Right.
But it turns out fulvic acid is the active ingredient in Shilajit. Now, it costs more because you have to purify the fulvic acid from it. You can't synthesize it or anything like that, because then it wouldn't be organic. But they provide fulvic acid, which is safe and does the same thing that Shilajit without the side effects. They're nattokinase, okay, which is okay. So one of the things, some of the products that I discovered a long time ago were like tissue plasminogen activator. Every ambulance carries it now. I'm one of the key inventors of that.
Nice.
It breaks up blood clots, but there's inhibitors of tissue plasminogen activator or other plasminogen activators that break down blood clots. There's inhibitors of those, and then there's things that inhibit those, the inhibitors.
Of course.
Nattokinase is one of those. It's a protease, even though it sounds like a kinase, it's actually not a kinase, which is a enzyme that adds phosphates to proteins. It's a protease that inactivates the inhibitor of telomerase. So what is this? It's a inhibitor. It activates the inhibitor of the activator. Okay, so
There you go.
so but it's a really, really great product for preventing or decreasing the risk of heart disease. Okay,
Nice.
and so Touchstone has that too. Okay, and so it's like
a great company.
Yeah, no, I'm blown away with the ethics of this company. That's why I say when we develop new things in the future, I'm not looking for anybody else to market these products. I'm
Nice.
sticking with Touchstone. And I'm not a marketer myself.
I hear you. I hear you.
I haven't spoken bad about any other companies as far as I know, but I like working with Touchstone immensely. And then they have the other products. They have their proteins, and they have this green juice that's really, really good. I take it every day. And I pay for it. Okay, I'm not getting a free product from them.
Well, we're running a little low on time, and I want to continue this conversation, but I would love to have you back to go deeper into some of these things, especially some of your work on cancer. But I want to talk about the products a little bit. The TeloVital, I was working with your guy. I set up an account, and they're sending me over some samples. I'm curious and interested to try them out myself. With this show, I meet a lot of people, a lot of companies, try a lot of products and all sorts of ideas, concepts, and all this stuff. But one of the things that is important to me is, I'm going to try the product, and I want to know, like, what am I looking for to validate its efficacy? I mean, a lot of things, you can feel energy, you can feel clarity, you can feel all these different things, but what's going to tell me that this is doing anything?
Okay, well, first of all, most products, you are, especially an anti-aging, you are not going to feel anything, okay?
Right.
Because you can't detect the slowing down of aging. Okay,
Exactly.
so a lot of the companies that promote products, they add things that are called instant gratification stuff.
Right.
Okay, so when people take the product, they suddenly feel a buzz or something like that. That's just to make them think that the product's doing something.
Right.
Okay? But in reality, it's impossible to measure the slowing of aging. Okay, now that said, we do know that when telomeres get critically short, they're easier to lengthen. So the shorter a telomere is, the easier it is to lengthen. So even though we aren't winning the tug of war in normal cells, in the cells that have critically short telomeres, we are winning the tug of war. We are lengthening. And so if a person taking TeloVital has critically short telomeres in any of their tissues or organs, they can possibly see a reversal of the symptoms.
Okay.
And so that's really the only thing that you can look for. But, I've mentioned stuff like instant gratifications to Eddie Stone, who's the head of Touchstone, and he said, no way. Okay. Yeah. They're making products that really work. They're not trying to just make money that, cheating people. So, so you really shouldn't, you will be slowing your aging down. You have to kind of go on faith, and people can do due diligence on me and all my successes in the past. My track record is impeccable, and they can find that, and they can listen to me talk at medical conferences. I never make false claims and things like that. They can find that what I say is pretty legit. I've developed a good reputation for being somebody that you can trust. So it is slowing down the rate of aging. Okay. And you're not going to be able to measure the slowing of aging. You can do it if you want to put 1,000 mice in two different groups and treat one and not the other. You can measure a slowing of aging there, but you can't in individual people. Even if you had an identical twin, your identical twin's going to have led a different life than you had. And so, and by the way, I do have an identical twin. And
wow. All right.
Identical twin is a measure of my success at slowing down my aging. But because he's only recently decided to start getting on my bandwagon and start doing
So you got a head start on him.
Yeah. So yeah, you're not gonna feel anything unless you do have critically short telomeres. And there are a lot of people that have critically short telomeres, even though they're young. And so things that people could look for are improved vision, improved endurance, improved like hair coming back or hair color coming back.
Okay.
But that's only going to happen if the loss of the hair or the change in color of the hair was because of telomeres.
Got it.
And like if your mother's father was bald and
Right.
you're bald because of that, that's
Getting
not
away from that one,
nothing to do with telomeres. Okay, so but there are, even with the past products that were on the market and stuff like that, I was stunned by people's hair color coming back, people's hair coming back, things like endurance. So I can tell you that personally, and I don't believe in anecdotal data, but
Sure.
I was surprised. I'm an ultra marathon runner.
Okay.
So I never ever came anywhere close to winning races and stuff like that. But after
Finishing an ultra marathon, that's winning a race.
yeah, well, I always say it's like I hope it never ends, because when you run as often as I do and stuff like that, running's more fun. It's adventure and stuff like that. I love the races. I'm not one of those runners that finish on their hands and knees throwing up. I usually can't. I want the race to last forever.
Nice.
But after taking one of the products that I had invented a long time ago, I'm not going to mention names because the product's really not available anymore. But I was running a race in Salt Lake City, and I was like stunned that I was doing really well. And I ended up finishing in the top 10 overall, winning my age group. And I'm driving home and I'm thinking, what happened? How did that happen? And all of a sudden it dawned on me, oh my God, it's this new product.
Nice.
So somehow, because of, I guess, maybe all the running, I had some critically short telomeres that was holding me back from my endurance. But my
Wow.
endurance has stayed up there ever since then. And I also, my ophthalmologist, I had to put my glasses on at the beginning because you were such a blur. But my vision started getting better. 3 ophthalmology appointments in a row. And I actually took pictures and I made a slide out of the different things to show this. And, was it because of the telomere product? I don't know. I can't think of anything else different I was doing.
Yeah.
But the 2 things that I had were the endurance getting better and the vision getting better. But I was pretty convinced that some of the other people, their hair was coming back. And
well, I'm paying a lot of attention to my body right now as I'm overcoming this problem that I've got, and I'm looking forward to trying the product. And I believe we've got a special for the listeners that I'll be able to offer. I'm going to put that into my show notes, but why don't you give us a little parting shot and how to get a hold of you or how to find your information?
Okay, well, yeah, I'm actually pretty open. People are welcome to email me with questions and things like that. I won't market, but I will talk about the science, okay, behind it. And my email address, you can put it on your website, is B as in boy, Andrews at Sierra Sci, that's SIERRASCI.com. And Sierra Sci is short for Sierra Sciences, which is my company.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't work for Touchstone. I just license the ingredients to them, but I'm feeling like I'm becoming an employee because I'm interacting with them so much. And that's the best way. And then if it gets crazy, I can actually provide my phone numbers to them after the email discussions, and we can talk even more. But yeah, I find I enjoy. My favorite part of ever giving a presentation on stage is the Q&A. I can answer any question, and I just love doing Q&A. I understand the science of aging, not just telomeres. I'm into all aspects of aging, and I understand. There's a series of talks that I do. One is like, what is aging? Another one is, why do we age? Another one is, how do we age? And then the other one is, how not to age. Okay, and so there's YouTube videos that people can find and listen to those, and they're going to find that I understand the whole what and why and how better than anybody in the world. The and I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but
Oh, no,
I
no,
spent
own
my
it.
entire life studying this stuff, and my things aren't theories anymore. What I do is I focus on explaining how everything we know about life and stuff like that causes us to age, and there's nothing we can do about it yet. And it's not, we don't have to create theories to explain aging. I explain how lack of theories, just everything this we know, does it all by itself. And that doesn't mean the theories also don't work, but it turns out you're going to still age even without the theories.
Sure.
Okay? So I explain all that, and then how we're going to prevent aging too. And nobody ever comes back and says to me, Bill, you're wrong. Everybody comes back to me and say, wow, I've never heard it presented that way, and it makes complete sense. So that's the skills I have, okay, where I can do something like that. And people, if they listen to those videos, definitely trust me a lot.
Well, you know what I would like to do is I'd like to have you come back on in the future, and I would like to put together a series of questions for you. I've got a ton of them, as you might imagine, and this conversation could go on for a long time, but the constraints of the show keep that from happening. So I would certainly like to invite you back, and just really grateful. This has been a great conversation, and this is important to anybody who is concerned about their health at all. And aging is a thing that, we're all affected with one way or the other. So
sorry I didn't give you enough time to talk. I talked my head off during this.
no,
I'm
this is
just obsessed with
fantastic.
the subject of aging. Yeah.
This is good conversation. And again, it opens the door for further discussion.
All right. Well, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us. And this has been another edition of the Healthy Living Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Grumbine. I thank you for all your support, and we will see you next time.
This has been another episode of the Healthy Living Podcast. We produce this show so that people can share their stories, people that have overcome obstacles, people that are undergoing obstacles. We're building a community of health-minded individuals. If you're interested in supporting the show, please leave a review on the platform you're listening to it on. If you're interested in becoming a guest, please send an email to itsjoegrumbine@gmail.com, or you can send a note into the notes section of the podcast. All right. Well, thank you for supporting this show, and we hope you've enjoyed it.